Hello everyone, this is Eric and I'm here with my good friend Martin. We're both YouTubers, Martin's channel, ELT Experiences.
That's right.
Topic that just came up that a lot of people are talking about is many teachers have been fired because of raising their political beliefs. What are your thoughts about politics in the classroom, teachers sharing their beliefs that might be different from what their students or the students' parents believe?
Well, I suppose when it comes down to politics, there's certain aspects that I was taught when I first started teaching that certain topics are off limits. Things like politics, religion, sex, drugs, that sort of thing. So these were things that I would not really encourage in the classroom, or if a student was wanting to talk about it, I'd listen, I'll give them the space for them to share whatever they wanted to share, but I wouldn't input my view, opinion, agreement or disagreement. I would just allow that student to say what they wanted to say, but I wouldn't give any ammunition to students to critique me on personal beliefs and opinions, because I feel, everybody has an opinion, whether it's about politics or religion or whatever it is. And it's so divided. You can talk about it till the cows go home. You can't necessarily agree, because everyone's going to disagree with what your opinion is, whereas someone else might have a completely different opinion.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to any of these sort of topics, I would not necessarily voice my opinion. And I've come from an era where there's some sense of reserved, discreet opinions about politics, and I'll go back to my...
You don't share it publicly, you keep it to yourself?
Yeah. And it's probably from the era of when I was in the Air Force, where if you're in the military, whoever's in government, you have to just agree and accept it.
Yeah.
You might not agree with them, with what
they're
doing,
your boss.
But they're your boss.
Yeah.
And if the media come, and I was told, if the media comes to interview you off base, just say no comment. I think for teachers in the public sphere, it's in the similar vein, where you don't want to put the school, the education, the public, government into disrepute to, where they might not agree with you.
I feel like a big thing is that, so you've got different sides. Let's say you've got two sides to a topic. I feel like with politics, people feel that they are right and that the other side is living in a different world dimension. So if someone gets to a point where they can't even see some of the ideas in the other side, that they're delusional and they share their own opinion as fact, that's where you get into a tricky space, because a lot of teachers might feel like they are so correct in their worldview and that they want to share that with their students, and then the students and the parents don't feel the same way. And so that's where a lot of teachers get blindsided by thinking that they're incorrigible. Everything is correct about their thinking.
Of course. The UK have had their issues when it comes down to, immigration. There's elements of truth, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum. There's elements of truth where things are acceptable on one camp, whereas on the other camp it's unacceptable. But I don't go sharing my opinions. I like to keep it discreet, and I don't want...
Do you still feel that way? So just for some context, recently many teachers have been suspended or fired because they voiced their opinion on Charlie Kirk, who got assassinated. And so parents and school boards found out, because now we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, people sharing their feelings towards something, and you might have the other side that disagrees. And how would you, do you think it's correct? Your point of view is not to say anything, or how do you feel about it?
Well, the whole issue of Charlie Kirk being assassinated, it's reprehensible, it's awful. Regardless of where you sit or where you agree or disagree, just to eliminate someone just because you disagree with them is not really conducive to society. You can disagree with someone, but respectfully, but you don't go and kill someone because you disagree with them.
The fact is that teachers spoke out about it, and they said, well, he deserved it, which nobody deserves anything like that. But do you think that the teachers were wrong voicing their opinions, or it's their right to free speech?
It's really hard because, if someone's lost their life, whatever you agreed or disagreed with about this individual, that's a completely different
Doesn't
point.
make it right. It doesn't give anyone the rights.
No. And, you're not only going to give more exposure to yourself, voicing your own opinion, blaming someone for their own demise. It's a horrible way of looking at it.
Yeah, well, say that it's okay. But another topic that came up, and we're going to bring it back to teachers being able to voice their opinions on social media, whether you agree with them or disagree with them. But Jimmy Kimmel recently, he got sacked from his show, and a lot of people say, well, he's got a right to free speech. And how is this different from teachers talking about different topics and being held accountable for the words they say?
Well, I think everybody in a sense of public space has a duty and a responsibility for voicing their opinion. So Jimmy Kimmel had his platform, which he
removed,
which he shared his political opinions, but he has a responsibility and a duty.
It's not a personal platform. No. He's an employee.
TV. Yeah.
So he's held accountable to the station.
And then as teachers, they have a platform to voice their own opinions to a classroom or online to other educators or what have you. Whenever you put something online, that's always going to go back to you.
It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
I think for teachers it's even more important because we've got these students, and our personal opinion and the things we think, we are there to help our students learn things, but we also we want them to learn valuable truths of the world. But sometimes there are different truths to something and different opinions, and we can go in with the kindest heart and the best intentions.
Sure. And I think it's good to have a debate, it's good to have a discussion, and maybe this is going back to teaching and getting students to find their voice.
But being apolitical is important.
It's like, how do you debate respectfully? That's what makes it more important than completely disagreeing and shutting down. And it's to do with maybe developing critical thinking skills with our students, and perhaps as educators ourselves, we have to develop those critical thinking skills ourselves.
And we're supposed to get involved in our students' lives, but sometimes you've got to pull back and say, okay, well, I'm going to be neutral, we're going to learn these skills and we're going to discuss these topics, but my views on something I'm not going to push onto you. These taboo topics, sex and politics, and that's where the news comes in. We've got this platform where the students see us, and it's our responsibility not to just share the ideas we have in this echo chamber. Because the problem with social media is that the things that we see, it's only reflected back to us. So we think everybody should have this viewpoint. And then we get to the classroom and we're so confident that our students should also have the same viewpoint. And that's why it's so important to remain neutral as a teacher.
I think it goes back to, if students want to voice their opinion, I step back and I allow them that space. And it's important to have that neutrality when it comes down to students wanting to share their opinion. And if they say, what do you think, teacher, or what do you think? And I go, well, some interesting points that you've highlighted on, and then I redirect it. I say, does anyone agree or disagree? And it's like, I'm not really going to share.
The funny thing is, I've heard this before, and so this is a very soft skill, how we interact with students when it comes to these sensitive topics. The students know where you stand, but you're not going to be the one to tell them. So, the way that you're going to speak to them and interact with them, you're going to remain neutral. You're going to open them up to be able to practice the skills and critical thinking, but you're not going to push your values and your ideas onto the students. I think a lot of teachers, and it can happen not just to teachers, but we get invested in our own opinions and who we are, and that ego. Once that ego gets hurt, you react, and it can often be badly. So we've got to be proud of who we are, what we've done, and being individuals, but we shouldn't make that the basis of how we interact with our students.
No, and then you practice what you preach. You say, okay, to the students, you need to not get too emotional, not get too defensive, but just negotiate and develop that. And if you can emulate that to the students.
I've been taught this about taboo topics
Sure.
for a long time, so we know this. But it kind of sneaks up on you. I remember many years ago, I was watching the news and something big happened, and I was so sure of that truth, my truth. And I was having a conversation with the students where I was talking about this because we were talking about world events.
Yes.
And
yes.
I brought out this event, and I'm like, how can you imagine this is happening, that everything else is trivial compared to this?
Sure.
And now many years later, I reflect on that, and I think this one thing, how it could be seen a different way, and the effects that had, I had no idea. We're very small as people.
We are.
And sometimes we think that I'm the master of the universe. I'm supposed to know everything, and everyone should agree with me.
I think for me, the biggest one was COVID. Everybody had an opinion about COVID. Do you get vaccinated? Do you not get vaccinated? If you get, and it's like, again, it was a slippery slope. And there's different views and opinions, but you've got to be respectful.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. I thought, okay, we have to get vaccinated. It's the logical thing to do. The doctors all say it. But then a lot of people in the comments said, we can see he's trying his best, but he doesn't understand where we're coming from. And it really, I was like, okay, well, let's look at this. And then I started looking at the reasons why people were against it, and why they didn't want to inject themselves with something that has just been made and that might actually be worse for them. And I was like, initially I was this way, and just because I was arrogant and because of my ego, I felt this way, I could have been completely wrong.
Yes.
And even though I knew as a teacher I would never do this with my students, sometimes it creeps up on you and you can make that mistake. But then you have to go back and say, listen, I'll be better next time. I don't want to push my students.
Sure.
And students can see that too.
Yeah.
Students are so honest where they can see a teacher. We get this glassy gaze. We were like, we believe this one thing, you've got to believe it too. And students can pick up on it.
Yeah.
Most of them can see, oh, this teacher is a little bit too invested in this opinion.
Yes.
But then what about the 20% that believe the teacher, and they start following their guidance, even though the teacher might be wrong?
Yes.
And that's the dangers of teaching and bringing politics into it.
Yeah, exactly. Politics, sex, drugs, religion.
But I'm happy we had this conversation about it.
Yeah.
As teachers, maybe we've got these opinions, we can't always talk about it. So it's nice to have colleagues. But teaching at university now, I feel very isolated. Don't always get this opportunity to chat.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you ever so much for coming over and having the time. It was great.
Martin, it's been a pleasure, considering you as a friend on YouTube for many years now, and to finally meet.
I know. Thank you.